Good morning. So I finally have been able to get through all of the grading, and I'm sorry for my delay, but it's a lot of papers to read, so bear with me. But I wanted to highlight a couple things about assignment number one as you get ready to write your second paper in module number 2. So I want to talk about first the paper, and then I want to talk about learning logs for a second. Okay, so first of all, when you are doing your paper, you must be mindful of APA formatting. So many of you did not have a running head, and so I have posted or will post a video on how to format your paper with a running head. So make sure you have that running head in your second paper. Number 2, when you're referencing something, an article or a website, you need to make sure that you're citing it in text citations with like the date and the name of the author, and then you're also referencing that in the reference list. It's important. Let's talk about the reference page for a second. This also came up. Number 1, the title of references is not bolded. It's centered, not bolded. Number 2, make sure that the references that you do put down on your reference list are double spaced. Number 3, make sure you have a hanging indent after the beginning of the reference. In terms of interviews, you do cite an interview in your paper if you interviewed someone as part of additional information you wanted to include in the paper. You do not include the interview in your reference list. That's part of APA formatting. It's also important, trying to read my notes here. If you do reference someone in text citation for an interview, if you name the person in the sentence, you do not need to put their initial and last name as part in the parentheses. But if you don't name the person in the sentence, then you would put their first initial and last name as part of information that would go in the parentheses. That's connected to interviews. Okay. Number 2, the second part I wanted to talk a little bit about, still connected to the paper, related to the headings. You are to have headings in every part of your paper. In the beginning part of your paper, you're going to have an introduction. You will not, and I think this is outlined in the syllabus, and I've just also highlighted it in a prior video. You are not to write introduction. You can use the title of the paper as part of your introduction, but you are not to title it introduction. That's part of APA formatting. When I say to you, divide your paper into these labeled sections, like in the prior one, I said, makeup of the team, analysis, personal reflection. Not everyone included those labels. In the second paper, you must include those labels identified for the court, for the breakdown of the court. And they're very similar to the titled sections for the first paper. But you have to have them. They have to be centered, and they have to be bolded, caps, lowercase. Be mindful of that. And then number 3 about the paper, in terms of when you look at the questions that I'm asking you to follow as part of the makeup of each section of your paper, make sure you answer every single question in order in that section, and make sure you don't miss any parts of the question. You must use elaboration in different sections. You cannot answer a question in a meaningful way if you're only using 3 and 4 sentences. Be mindful of that. Elaboration is the key. It's essential. And there may be some questions that have more than one part to them. You must answer every part of the question. So make sure when you go through and you're rereading your paper, make sure you hit on every element of the question. And then last, I would say make sure that you are proofreading your papers for small mechanical, verb agreement, sentence fragments, mechanical errors. In general, very pleased with the papers, but to make them of the best quality, I want you to really work on the details of it, because I want I want to take this class and make you be a model for what the other classes should hope to be. So, in terms of the paper, APA formatting, make sure you have all the required headings, answer all the questions in a deep and meaningful way, and last, proofread for any small errors that you might have. One last thing about references too, I think I touched on it, but maybe I didn't. Be sure that when you are doing hyperlinks, that you deactivate the hyperlink in the reference list. Okay? Now, another topic, and I've talked about this before, but let me do it one more time. Learning logs. Now, I have activated there's a tab on the left-hand side named Rubrics. You can look in there. It'll highlight every rubric that I use, and you should be able to see them when I'm grading your paper. But pay attention to the ones on rubrics. Because I don't think I did a good enough job of trying to explain the learning logs in the syllabus, or maybe even in the last video. I didn't really take off on how many, if you had at least 2 this module, in the first module. But the rubric says very specifically that you have to have more than 2 learning logs in every module to be able to get the 4 in that category. So be sure if you have 2, you'll get a proficient grade, but you have to have more than 2 to get the distinguished grade. And then you need to have so let me highlight this. The purpose of those learning logs is for you to, and maybe in the beginning of the module, talk about what you hope to get out of it. In the middle of the module, what you've learned so far, maybe some frustrations you might have, suggestions you might have to help improve the module, or even ideas of other topics you think I could include in that module to make it better. And then lastly, at the end of the module, maybe just a summary of the module, how you thought it went. It has to be at least 150 words minimum, so pay attention to those learning logs. I don't want you just to rush through that. I want you to think about it, think about it in a meaningful way. So just think about those things as you write those learning logs. I do read every single one of them. I can't respond to every single one of them right away, and so I'm learning about that too. But know for sure that I look at everything you write, and I respond as quickly as I can, as I kind of balance my life, work life, and college life, and personal life. So be patient with me, and I hope that you find I've been as flexible as I can. But let's continue to work through the modules, And good job so far. Keep up the good work. I know it's a lot of work, and you are really helping establish what this course will look like in the coming semesters and years. Okay, have a nice weekend. Continue to work hard. If you have any questions, you can always email me or call me directly. Again, have a nice weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.